What's up, everybody? Good Wednesday evening to you all that out there. If you're anywhere near where I'm at and you're dealing with this heat wave, I hope you're doing your best to stay cool. Pre-recording this on Sunday, so the heat wave actually is just coming in. So I imagine if this was live, I would be complaining a lot more. Yeah, so anyway, welcome into another episode of the OBR Draft Prospect Spotlight. I'm your host, Jacob. You can find me at Roachism13 on Twitter. You can go find me at theobr.com at Roach257. Make sure you are liked and subscribed on the YouTube channel. We are making our final push to 10K on YouTube, so please make sure you help us make that push. We want to get there before training camp. That's the goal. Joining me this week in the co-host chair, Mr. Anthony Russo. How you doing, buddy?
I am good, man. I do not have a heat wave to speak of, but I will say I am fired up for the wide receivers that we're going to talk about today.
Oh, that's well executed. That was very well executed.
Thank you.
That's my kind of humor. All right. Not the listeners' kind of humor. They're going to be like, oh, God, here goes Jacob again.
No, I'm already – you can see the dislikes pouring in already. I'm sorry.
That's all that's wrong with. Oh, guys, I hope you checked out last week's episode. We are going to continue with our summer scouting podcast series as we look at the 2026 draft, and I'm going to be doing these here on the YouTube channel. We'll be doing draft shows all year long. We'll be updating it. Quarterbacks is coming towards the end. Last week we did offensive tackles with Bill Sparks. You want to check that out on YouTube. We're doing wide receivers today. Last week I talked a little bit, Anthony, about my process of summer scouting, and Bill did as well. And as I continue to bring in a bunch of different people, especially from the Draft Professor, which, like, if you have not checked out the Draft Professor, please make sure you go check that out. Anthony and I are in a group that's like 75 of us. It's at any time of day or night you can get in that and nerd out about the NFL draft, and it's actually sometimes I just read it. I'm just like, oh, okay, it's great, right? But I talked about my process a little bit last week, man. So I want to give you a process. Just how do you go about beginning summer scouting? Like, building your big board. I told the listeners last week, like, I start by going to a mock draft simulator so I can get the names, and then I go back and try to find their tape and watch that kind of thing. So kind of take me, just don't have to go super in depth, but just, a little bit about your process.
Yeah. So in terms of getting names and figuring out who to watch, I genuinely, I get names from a bunch of different places. The Draft Professor chat that you talked about, but even if you're just on Twitter, people know the big name draft analysts. You'll see them tweeting. I tweet out names that I've watched, but we're all constantly sharing. I like this guy. This guy had some good tape. Oh, I really like this play. That kind of thing. So you can get names from there. Obviously, websites like you talked about, Mock Draft Simulator. PFF has a big board of I think like 200 guys or something like that they've put out. So you can get names from there. Another thing I like to do, and maybe this is just a little too nerdy for some people, but I like to I go into PFF, their grades, and I'll see if I'm looking for a corner, for instance, and I want to see who were the best man cover corners last year, I'll see who had the highest PFF man cover grade. And that is by no means an exact science to say just because you have a higher grade means you're the best. That's not at all, the case. But it helps you kind of get a sense of who was really strong in that area. And you'll see, if they play at a big school like an Ohio State or an Alabama or Clemson or whatever, you have to believe if they have high grades and they're at a top school, they're probably at least pretty good. So that's a way to collect names. I think for me too, when I watch players and I start to build out the board, I like to go by position. So I watch I'll give myself a list of 7-8 wide receivers, and I'll kind of just spend a few days watching them, and then I'll go to a different position group and so on and so forth. For me, I think positional breakdown is helpful because you know what you're looking for in a good wide receiver, right? We'll talk about a couple guys, but you're looking for strong hands, you're looking for good route running, you're looking for ability to separate, you're looking for an ability to release off the line of scrimmage well. So you can keep those traits in mind and watch, however many guys you want to watch, and say, oh, okay, this guy has really good hands. This guy's a really good route runner. This guy's really good after the catch. So that's how I like to do it. And that's certainly not to say that that's the only way to do it, but I think watching by position is helpful. And also too, I think I heard a really good, because this is my, I guess, second official summer scouting that I kind of did in 23, but I don't really count it. But I think watching like NFL player tape, like top guys at each position. So like, if you're doing wide receivers, watch Justin Jefferson, watch Jamar Chase, watch CeeDee Lamb, watch what makes them the best at their position at wide receiver, whatever it is. And then you'll know what to look for. And then you can go watch the college guys and say, oh, okay, they do this similar to a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase or whoever.
Yeah.
So that was a really good tip that I heard from earlier this year, actually, that I hadn't really thought about, but I think is very helpful as well.
Yeah, I've never been huge into the player comps, strictly from I just find it difficult to do. Like for me personally, like if you tell me, hey, I have a player comp for this wide receiver or something like that, I can easily go, oh, I see your vision. I know why you think that. And I either agree or I disagree or whatever. And I'd be like, well, maybe, but I have such a hard time assigning that because I don't know. It's just, there's too many possibilities to me. It's like, oh, I could call him a short Julio Jones, but then I'm also comping him to one of the best of all time. And I don't want to, it's like, because you don't want to give that wrong impression. And so for me, it's always been difficult. I think I'm getting better at that. That's what I agree with you 100%, because it's like, okay, I'm trying to find a wide receiver. I'm trying to find my Jamar Chase. Well, what does Jamar Chase do well? Well, he catches everything. He's an amazing separator. He's so creative with the ball in his hands, things like that. And you're like, okay, well, now I'm watching this particular player play at, Ohio State. And like Jeremiah Smith, I'm starting to see, there's the Julio comparisons and things like that. And you're like, well, he's not necessarily a Jamar Chase type because he's bigger, so I can't comp him there. But does he have some traits that Jamar Chase has? Yeah, he absolutely does. And so you start carrying that stuff over. And I think that also helps listeners and readers and things like that be like, okay, so what you're trying to say is, yeah, you're talking this guy up, but you still only see him as like a wide receiver 3. Like, yeah, you're talking about good things about him, but you're comparing him, oh my God, to Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd at his height of being the number 3 in Cincinnati with Chase and Higgins above him, but he's still a really good receiver, but like, he's not on that other level. And I think that can also, because I think sometimes as draft analysts, we want to talk about positivity, and it makes us sound like we like every single prospect in the draft. Like, it's like, yeah, to an extent we do, but even at his height, he may only be here, like he may only be a wide receiver 3. So let's get into it. Wide receivers. We're going to give you 3 names, and me and Anthony talked about this, not necessarily 1, 2, and 3 for us. We're going to maybe throw some surprise ones in there, some sleepers. And work through that list, man. So give me your first one.
So my first, I promise I am not going to do my 1, 2, 3, but I am starting with my wide receiver 1 because
Absolutely.
I think I'm the only one that has him as wide receiver 1 at this point. Even though I keep trying to yell at everybody on Twitter about him. But that is Bryce Lance from North Dakota State. And right out of the gate, I know it's going to sound crazy that a wide receiver 1 doesn't even play in the FBS. Let alone the Power 5. But if you watch him last year, particularly all year, but last year in the FCS playoff, he was truly on another level. I have no reason to believe that if he wanted to, he couldn't have transferred to a Power 5 school. He is just very loyal to North Dakota State, to each their own. But he's the younger brother of Trey Lance. That is the family relation there. So he's got some NFL bloodline. Maybe not the greatest, but I think he's a little more promising than his brother was. But the big thing you're going to notice right away. So he has wide receiver 1 size, 6'3", 209, but he is athletic. He makes some unbelievable leaping catches. He is fast for his size. My guess is he'd run like a high 4.4, which is certainly not like a burner, but for a guy that's 6'3", 210, 209, that's a pretty damn good speed, I would say. His body control is so special. It reminds me of Marvin Harrison Jr. a bit in that regard. Just his ability to be able to make catches off his body with really strong hands, but still keep feet in bounds, be able to stretch outside of his catch radius and make big plays. He is so good at doing that, and he does it constantly. I think he has good release, like a good release package. I think where he can improve is his route running in terms of how crisp they are, and also just his route tree in general. I don't think it's like egregiously bad, but I think it can use a little more nuance and a little more development. So that's something I would look for. And also too, North Dakota State, we know that they've been an FCS powerhouse for years now, but they've just lost their starting quarterback. They just lost their starting left tackle in Gray Zabel to the NFL. So we'll see if he's able to replicate the production, but like he had 17 touchdowns this past season, including the postseason, which is a wild number, over 1,000 yards. And this is a team that they don't really throw the ball a ton because they're usually winning football games. So Bryce Lance, I think, is like a very, very special player. I think he's going to be the best FCS player in college football this year. And again, I know I'm higher on him than most. I've seen most people say he's like a day 2 guy, which I think is fair. But I would definitely watch out for Bryce Lance this year. I think he has all of the tools and traits of a first-round wide receiver.
And just put him down on the list. So I'm going to try to get to him this week. Because I have not. I think I've seen you talk about it, but I haven't had him in my crosshairs to where I personally have watched anything on it. But listen, I remember Christian Watson when he was coming out, and being I understand it's FCS, but this guy's going against the best every year because they're in the playoffs every year. So he's playing some good teams, and they've always been a run heavy team, especially like you said, they're up late. They always seem to have a good offensive line. It always, there's so many players that have come out from really both Dakotas when it comes to offensive linemen over there. So that's awesome. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to do who I think is my wide receiver 1 right now. I don't really have them ranked yet because I just personally I'm only 10 deep, and I don't really love to do a ranking when I'm only 10 guys deep. But the guy that I've liked the most that I want to put on my guys list already is Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. And some people are going to ask questions the last time we saw Arizona State, I didn't remember a wide receiver sticking out. He was hurt for the playoff game. He did not play in the playoff game. That's why it was all on Cam Scadaboo in that situation, is they did not have Jordan Tyson, who I think is phenomenal. And there's a lot of things that you like about Bryce Lance that I like about Tyson. His body control, I think, is insane. And his concentration while he's doing that, the way he's able to that Marvin Harrison comparison, because he's not Marvin Harrison. Tyson's not the same size as Marvin Harrison, but what Harrison was able to do and the way he could contort and twist his upper and lower body, he could twist his lower body one way and his upper body to the other side. It was just insane. And I don't think maybe Tyson's quite on Marvin Harrison's level, but he does a lot of that stuff where he's able to, adjust to passes that aren't maybe put in a great spot for him, and he's able to figure it out and get it done either way. And his concentration in those moments, I think he does it. He has to just it essentially puts noise canceling headphones on himself, because it just feels like everything's blocked out, and it's just him trying to figure out how do I get from where I am to get that ball in my hands. And I think that really sticks out. And I think the contested catches in the red zone, which is where it's mostly the body control and concentration, I think, that puts him in those good spots, I think, in those particular ones. I think he's a pretty good athlete. I think that the athletics, I would say he probably tests pretty good. I would say he ends up testing good. The thing that I love, and I saw someone else, I love when people put it this way. He has the no block, no rock mentality, in my opinion. And I think the thing that's crazy about it, I hate when I do this to myself and I don't put down the measurements. So Arizona State has him listed at 6'2". Do you have a weight on Jordan Tyson?
I have 195 written down.
Okay. So that's the thing that gets to that sounds about right to me. But that's what really sticks out. He's not 220.
Mm-hmm.
He's sub 200 pounds, and he runs angry after the catch. He wants to bury you into the ground as a blocker, but that size, he's got an injury history. Some things just pop up. I don't believe there's been a season where he's missed, because I think he's only got 2. Yeah, so he played in 9 games, 3 games, and 12 games. So first year as a freshman, he was in Colorado. Didn't do a ton, plays in 9 games. Only plays 3 games as a sophomore, has no receptions, and then just last year he plays the 12 games, so he missed the playoff game, missed some time with injuries. So they've popped up throughout his first 3 years in college, and that bothers you a little bit, and I think some people will stick with that. He's also only 20 years old right now, so that's worth noting that he's got 3 years of college experience going into this. But I just think really good athlete, crazy body control. I love the way he blocks. I love the way he runs after the catch. And for that reason, I've got him at wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I think you are not going to be the only one that has him wide receiver 1. And frankly, I don't have him wide receiver 1. I actually have him right now listed at wide receiver 4. And that's going to sound, wide receiver 5. And that's going to sound not great, but actually I think it speaks more. There's some good wide receivers. There's some really, I'm about, I want to say 12 deep now, something like that. There's some good wide receivers that we are going to be talking about in April. And so having Jordan Tyson wide receiver 5, I think sounds like more of an indictment than it actually is. Because I would have no problem taking him at some point in the first round. I would say probably toward the end of it. But yeah, if he's healthy, I think he's a great route runner. I think the drops were one of the things that concerned me too. He had 7 drops last year, which I didn't love. But no, I 100% agree with you. It's all there for him if he stays healthy.
Yeah, I would like to point that out. This is very early because we're in summer scouting, but we've had some, last year's wide receiver class was very meh, especially after the top 4 or so. You got into the point where you were ugh. I've done 10 and there's only 1 that I don't like. And it wasn't even that I didn't like him. I was just I gave him a David Bell player comp is what it was. A guy that is open all the time and he catches everything, but he's a limited athlete that's not creative after the catch. But I think he could be a good possession receiver on day 3 of the drafters, and so out of the 10 I've watched, I give one guy a 4th round grade. That's as low as I have gotten so far. And I enjoy, I had trouble picking, I was going to do Jordan Tyson as I just did. And then the next 2, there was a struggle to just pick 2 more wide receivers for me on this pod. So, all right, man, give me your second one.
All right, my second one, I think this is the only one that you may also have. And full disclosure, we have not shared who our 3 wide receivers are. I have Maikel Lemon from USC. And I don't know if you've watched him yet. Man, God, he's so cool. He's so fun. He's 5'11", 195, is junior for USC. He is just so quick, so electric. I think he has true 4.3 speed. he is a fantastic separator and route runner. You'll see him return several kickoffs and make plays. There was one kickoff, I think it was Texas A&M, where he gets the kickoff and he leaps over one guy and then cuts to the middle, then cuts back to the sideline to juke out another guy, and then tries to jump over another guy and gets knocked out of bounds. It's like a 40-yard kickoff return, and it is just it's so fun to just watch him with the football in his hands. And his hands, I will say too, I think there's a lot of guys that, we talk about guys that are super quick and, have great deep speed and all that stuff, and they don't have good hands. They drop the ball a lot. They aren't able to use their hands to, like I've talked about with Lance, catching outside their catch radius and making those tough catches. Maikel does that. He had one drop on all of his targets this past year. So he is very reliable when it comes to physically catching the football. The negatives are, probably pretty obvious for a guy that's 5'11", 195. He's not a great blocker. He'll get muscled around by bigger corners. He's not going to be like a jump ball guy. But if you just put the ball in his hands, which is easy to do given how good he can catch the ball, he is going to always make something happen. He was a big reason why USC came back in, I forget what bowl it was, but the bowl game against Texas A&M, they made that double-digit second half comeback, and he was making a lot of plays to make that happen. So Maikel Lemon is a super fun football player. And also, too, USC had very inconsistent quarterback play this past season with Miller Moss and then Jaden Maiava. So if there is a consistent presence at quarterback, I would expect Maikel Lemon to do some big things and definitely also could find his way into the first round conversation.
27.1 yards per kick return.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I'm with you 100% on him. Just get the ball in his hands. I just get the ball in his hands. And those are the kind of wide receivers I really gravitate to as a draft analyst. Like when I'm trying to rank them, I really gravitate towards the people that can be more creative after the catch. There's plenty of times like Tet McMillan, there's plenty of times the size speed combo ends up winning for me, but I do love the creative guys because no matter who your quarterback is, a guy that is creative after the catch makes his job easier because he can throw the ball 4 yards in front of him. Any NFL quarterback can do that and throw the ball 4 yards and it turns into a 15-yard gain because of what he does after the catch. And that's what I've talked about with the Browns this year, Jerry Jeudy and Harold Fannin, when they drafted Harold Fannin, that was a big thing for me. It was he can play power slot and create after the catch. And that's going to help, whether it's Joe Flacco, whether it's one of the rookies or something like that. It's going to help them immensely because they've got this guy that just, it looks so weird with Harold Fannin. He's so clunky, but smooth at the same time. I don't know how he's clunky and smooth at the same time. And sorry, we're getting off on a Maikel, another Harold Fannin rant from me here on this show. So we'll get off of that. Okay. So for me, number 2 is going to be who I call Tet McMillan 2.0. And that's Denzel Boston, the wide receiver from Washington. I will say this. I do think he might be a more fluid athlete than Tet was. And people that know me know that I had Tetairoa McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona, who ends up going to Carolina this year. I had him as wide receiver 1 the whole time. I held fast. I think Denzel Boston from Washington is him, but I think he's a smoother mover. I think he's just more fluid and it's just more natural to him. He's not super explosive. Similar thing that you're going to find that you thought with Tet. I don't think he's super explosive. I'm not saying he's slow off the line of scrimmage. I just don't think he's super crazy explosive, but he has really good long speed. once he gets out there, he gets building it up, especially if he's out on the outside a little bit, about 15 yards downfield. And now I think he can run away from some people, but he's not going to run like a 4.3. He might run in the 4.5s. I don't even know like where he's going to be, but I do think the long speed's there, similar to how I felt about Cedric Tillman when he was coming out of Tennessee, where I was like, yeah, he's not going to get there super fast. And he's not like, Anthony Schwartz was, which I know that's one of those speedy wide receivers that couldn't catch that you were alluding to earlier. But like, he's not going to run 4.2, he's not going to run 4.3, but like, he can get there. I think he's a good effort blocker because of his size. He's 6'4", 210. I think he's big, strong, physical effort blocker. I just don't think he knows what he's doing with his hands. Like, I don't know that anybody's really taught him how to block properly. But I think in the NFL, especially for wide receivers, I can work with somebody that's willing to try. And I think he's willing to try, and I think you can get him there. I think he's a good route runner. And I think he's a good separator, but I think sometimes he rounds off his routes. I think they need to be refined a little bit, where I think they're not quite as crisp, which is where I think he's a fluid athlete and not like a super twitchy or explosive athlete, is that sometimes he rounds some things off. Which when you're getting like 6'4", 6'5", well over 200 pounds, that's kind of what you're going to start expecting for those sort of guys. But he's a guy. Would you look at that as we're recording? Kevin Durant has been traded to the Houston Rockets.
Oh my God.
That is not where I thought he was going as we were recording that. This is not breaking news for anybody watching this pod, because this happened 3 days ago. Anyway. But yeah, big size speed combination, like good athlete, big and physical, which is what I loved about Ted, was that he had both. And I think that you get that with Denzel Boston. I'm really excited to watch him this year. But if you're looking for one of the big physical wide receivers who still move really well, I think Denzel Boston's that guy for me.
So I have Denzel Boston as my wide receiver too.
Okay.
As of now. So I totally agree with a lot of the points you hit on. I don't know if you watched his Michigan game, but that play where he runs like an out route and then an up route, and Jair Hill, who was a corner from Michigan, probably like a day 2 guy right now for the draft, but just gets absolutely put on his ass by Denzel.
I did not see this.
It's so funny. It's just, Denzel Boston, and run again like out route, and then Jair like tries to match him, and then Boston cuts upfield, and he just like falls backwards. It's the funniest thing ever. But yeah, and you hit on it. Boston's fluid, smooth, good route runner overall. He's got the size. He's a hell of a like red zone threat. It's very Tet coded, I would say. Yes. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Boston, and I remember watching him when I was watching Rome Odunze back a couple of years ago, because Boston was I think a freshman at that point on that with Michael Penix and all those guys, McMillan and Polk. So he's been around, for a minute, and has now emerged as like the true number one for Washington. So yeah, big Denzel Boston fan here.
Also wanted to I forgot to mention this. I think he's a natural pass catcher, and I think he catches it away from his body. I think that's important for some of those big guys, because some of those big guys, they just want to be physical and they just want to cradle it, and sometimes that can be an issue. All right, give me your number 3, your last one for this pod.
All right, so my last number 3 is a name that you are honestly probably not going to hear anyone else talk about, at least right now. And full disclosure, this is a guy that I have a day 3 grade on, but I can see the path to being a guy that we're going to talk about in April. That is Eric McAllister. He is the wide receiver at TCU, which is low key. I'm not going to say they've been like a wide receiver U necessarily, but you think about Quentin Johnson a couple of years ago. You think about Jalen Reagor even before that. But you think about this past year, they had Jack Besh and Savion Williams. So they know how to produce, guys that will get drafted. What happens in the NFL might be a different story, but they can produce NFL talent. And I think Eric McAllister, now that Besh and Savion are gone, he is going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Horned Frogs this year. So he's coming in at 6'3", 205. He's a redshirt senior. He spent 2 years at Boise State before transferring to TCU this past season. And he is very athletic, particularly for his frame, but just in general. Will give you some shades of like that Savion sort of kind of athleticism and ability to make plays after the catch. And I don't think he's quite the sort of, Savion was sort of a amalgamation of a wide receiver and a running back and a kickoff returner all molded into one. I don't think McAllister's like that, but he does have that awesome size, speed, athleticism combo that you just, the NFL is always just going to love and you have to enjoy if you watch it. He's not afraid to get physical. He can take big hits because he's 6'3", 205. He's willing to get physical at the catch point if needed. He just really, obviously he didn't really just have a ton of opportunities this past year because he was, behind Besh and Savion eating up most of the targets and opportunities in that offense. I will say he had 5 drops on 58 targets, so he's got to clean that up. He is incredibly raw as a route runner, very underdeveloped. He's got to show more in terms of the routes he's running and also just, how he's able to actually run them. It is very much going to be, this is a guy that if by the end of the season he kind of flames out and is a guy that doesn't get drafted or goes very late, on day 3, I could see it. But I can also see the world where he does step up with now as wide receiver 1 and he cleans up, some of his technique and some of his concerns with the drops and stuff like that, and is able to put out tape that could make him the next TCU wide receiver that we see get drafted. So Eric McAllister, TCU Horned Frogs, is a guy that could be a deep sleeper that if he pans out would impress your friends if you called him out now.
That's what I love that, dude. I love when you when you stumble on one of those guys and you're just like, everybody starts talking about, I can't remember, this name's escaping me, but there was a couple of those guys, I think on the defensive line for me last year. And I was just like, I was just like, look what happened. Now for all of those guys that exist, I have like 10 that don't, but I've never missed. Anyway, number 3 for me, little homerism probably here, but Carnell Tate from Ohio State is a guy that he's like a Mecca Ibuka almost, where I feel bad for him because he's such a talented wide receiver, but Ohio State just has a plethora of them the last 5-6 years, especially. And there was just other guys that have always overshadowed him. I don't think Emeka Egbuka was ever looked at as the number 1 wide receiver at Ohio State. And he was a first-round pick because he was a phenomenal player, but he just didn't get that run because of, the Marvin Harrison, and then Jeremiah Smith comes along. And now with Carnell Tate, Tate's last year buried because of Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith, and Tate still had a pretty good year. And now I think he's going to be the number 2. We'll see how that happens in Ohio State with him behind Jeremiah Smith. But he's 6'3", 192 pounds. I think he's an elite separator and route runner. I think that is where he is going to do his winning, is with his route running. I think he really sells his fakes. He's got kind of that little bit of a little wiggle, quick feet where it's like, oh, he's going outside, I better go outside. And then he just cuts back inside, creating that's where I think he creates the most separation, is just he just his change of direction is up there. Think he tracks the deep ball pretty well. He's not a burner. I don't think he's slow, but you're not going to be like, I need to add more speed, let's go draft Carnell Tate. But you're not going to be mad either, because I think he can get vertical and I think he can track that ball. I think his ability, his contested catches, I think that kind of stands out to me. It's particularly because he's got the decent length of 6'3", but he's 192, and that's what Ohio State lists him as. I'm not sure he's even that big. I'm not sure he's 192. I think he might be a little bit smaller, and that's wherein a lot of the concern is going to be a sub 200 wide receiver, anytime there's a sub 200 wide receiver by more than a few pounds, I have some concerns about the size and the durability, because what kind of workload can they take in the NFL? This is something I have heard. I've talked to some people in Columbus and some people around that program that he loves to work. That is what I've been told, that like Carnell Tate at Ohio State, that he's just trying to perfect his craft. I think, and you know this, I think NFL teams love that, man. Because if they know you're going to be receptive to coaching then they're like, oh yeah, they see this bad habit and they're like, but I can coach it out of him because he listens and he works his tail off and he does all those things. And then I think the biggest thing for him, I think he thrives in zone coverage, because I think he is really smart, really tempoed route runner who can find the hole in the coverage. Like as he starts to run his routes, especially if your quarterback extends the play, I think he does a good job where he's like, oh yeah, that connection with we always talked about this for so long with Mahomes and Travis Kelce, where Travis Kelce is probably one of the best tight ends at finding the hole in zone coverage ever. Like I think Carnell Tate has some of that in him. I'm not saying it's on Travis Kelce's level, but like he's got some of that, like, oh, I know I should be here, but if I go about 2 yards this way, there's not going to be anybody there. I'm going to have a better chance to create after the catch. I think he's a really good athlete. I don't think he's like a crazy athlete, but I do think there's some quick twitch there, some start-stop ability, some change of direction ability that's there. He's probably a day 2 guy in the end, because I don't think he's going to have elite physical athletic traits that are going to make you want to take him day 1, and he's a little undersized. But like he's one of those guys that just kind of gets overshadowed because he just does his job, does his role really well, and he's just not – there's just a bigger name at Ohio State. So I just wanted to give Carnell Tate a little bit of love.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And you hit a lot of the notes that I have here. Literally the first one, good job identifying space and zone coverage. Like he has that natural instinct. And part of that, I think, is just, Ohio State just knows how to coach their guys. But yeah, definitely Carnell checks a lot of boxes. There's one like sideline catch against Texas that is just an insane catch, and he has several impressive catches on his tape as well. So yeah, I think he got overshadowed last year. We'll see if does he sort of carve out an Emeka Egbuka role, because I don't see him usurping Jeremiah Smith as wide receiver 1 by any means. But if he can be the Emeka, for the Buckeyes this year, like it got Emeka Egbuka a first-round pick, so like why not him too?
When you got Julian Sayin taking over more likely than not at quarterback for them, and it's like getting his first real run as a starter in college football, and a guy like an elite separator, and Jeremiah Smith is just a cheat code, but an elite separator like Tate that is able to attack zone defenses and just do his job really well, which is a lot of what you said about Emeka Egbuka like last year. It's just like his role, like, he might not be the number 1, but he's going to be really solid and really help your quarterback because he just does all these little things right. Just understands, what it is he's being asked to do.
And I would say too, like a really good wide receiver 2 is worth a first-round pick. Like that because of what the NFL is now. Like if you can guarantee, a guy like a T. Higgins, if that's your wide receiver 2, you take that in the first round, no question.
If the guy when he gets to his second contract, if he is going to push 20 a year, he's worth a first-round pick, and that's what wide receiver 2s are doing.
Yep.
Like if you're like best case scenario, he's going to be a wide receiver 2, but that pays $23 million a year. It's like, okay, then that's I'll take that top 10. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Obviously, if you're top 10, you want it to be higher on your depth chart, but who gives a crap if things are working out?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man, for joining me. This was a lot of fun. Multiple names I had to write down, which I love that. I love that shit. I love being like, okay, I got to write this down. But yeah, before we let you go, man, just tell everybody where they can find all your stuff.
Yeah, you can find me. You can find me on X at Anthony _Russo 97. Like I said, I'm constantly tweeting out clips of guys, thoughts on some guys that were, as I go through my summer scouting. I hope to get up to 150 by the time the season starts, which probably will happen. But yeah, and you can find me you mentioned the Draft Professor podcast before. I'm there on Friday nights. We're doing quarterbacks right now every week. So if you're interested in the quarterback discussion, which I imagine Browns fans have mixed feelings about the position right now. But if you're into that, come check us out on Friday nights. So, but yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Hey, guys, make sure you're subscribed. Give us a thumbs up. Put that little, help us get to that 10,000 there on YouTube. We're at like 9.4. We need like 500 and some people for us to get to that 10,000. We got shows for you Monday through Friday, multiple shows Monday through Friday. Tomorrow it's Wednesday, so tomorrow's Thursday. Jeff Lloyd, Monday through Friday at 6:00, Browns 3D, and then also Thursday. So it's All Eyes on Cleveland with Casey Kinnaman and Brad Ward. If you didn't see last week's episode when we revealed the new merch making fun of Casey and his unfortunate draft night of eating spam, please make sure you go watch that. It's the first couple of minutes of last week's All Eyes on Cleveland. You'll want to see that. And we appreciate you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next week.